Basis 46 R1 with Harald. Okay? Right.
Yeah, maybe I should do that. I'm coming from Germany. I'm into many fields of research. I've been doing free energy for quite a while. I stepped a little bit into medical research, starting with electrosensitivity. And at a certain point I had to start to deal with environmental monitoring. And this is what brought me to the position where I dare to state that we now are able to understand what are chemtrails composed of. Maybe not all of the components, but the most important one, how the technical part goes together, works together. And when you start to understand the technical aspects, you can also go into the agendas behind. And this is something that is getting very exciting because it's not one agenda, it's at least 3 or 4 agendas that are running in parallel, driven by different groups of interest. It is difficult. As long as you're on the ground, you cannot measure what is happening in the sky. But if you really try to put a spot on a topic, you need to take many different angles and look at the things from different angles. And if the pictures you get kind of very much fit onto each other, then you can be sure about what you see. Like, for example, if you look at the sky just with your normal eyes, you cannot tell a chemtrail from a contrail, but what you can tell is that every evening on the sunny side of the evening sky you have stripes. On the star side of the evening sky you have a very clean and pure view onto the stars, which explicitly says you have something in the air that is photoionizing, that is sensitive to the light of the sun, and as soon as you have the light of the sun on whatever is up there, it is producing current, and the current on the particles or whatever it is producing vapor, so it's getting cloudy. This is something that is definitely not natural. This is only one single thing you can say from looking in the sky. It's an experience everybody can. Just when the sun goes down, mostly the sun is hidden by stripes, by persistent contrails. And if you then just turn around by 180 degrees and you look on the half of the sky that is already dark, you will not see any stripes. During nighttime you don't have stripes. If this would be vapor, like people tell, it would be there day and night. And there's no other explanation than that you have some particles in the air that are photoionizing, that are taking in sunlight, produce current, get into a plasma state, and then this plasma state is attracting the vapor from the humidity and create this hazy stripes and clouds. So there is definitely something photoionizing. The second thing you see is really strange rainbow-like structures in the clouds in certain angles from the sun. And this also from water and ice crystals, you know, the angles. These structures are not similar to the natural rainbow. There must be something chemical, something crystalline, something unnatural in the sky producing these halo effects. Would be possible, but just the view of it at this point is enough, because you have many more things. Then you go into chemical analysis of soil, rainwater, and plant material. And you get this fingerprint of barium, strontium, titanium, and aluminum. Everywhere around the world where you have problems with plant death, you have this fingerprint. It's not enough to kill plants if you look into the school books, but you have this fingerprint. Then you look into the history of the development of geoengineering technologies. And you find that they started experimenting with mixtures of aluminum oxide and metal salts. And if you go into the military domain, explicitly the metal salt used is barium strontium titanate. And there you have your fingerprint. You have barium, strontium, titanium, and aluminum in this mixture of particles. Just if you study patents and literature about what has been invented for cloud seeding and weather manipulation and climate engineering. So you have the fingerprint, you have kind of the literature about the technology. Then you go into the military domain and you find the chemtrail class of the US Air Force Academy. It's all public. It's public domain. It's in the university libraries, where you have there's an US Air Force Academy, and within the chemical department you have the chemtrail class. And there they teach how they do it. And they do it by spray pyrolysis. They insert certain chemicals, weak metal salts, diluted with water or with methane. It can be used as a fuel additive. There are different methods to do it. We don't know how actually they do it on military planes. But basically what you need to do, you need to take the metal salts, get them into a liquid. It can be water. It can be something that is burning as well. And then you create, it is added into the air that is sucked in to the combustion process as a very fine vapor, like with, because you need you need to control the particle size, and controlling the particle size you can do by defining the size of the droplets you produce, and this is done by ultrasound. Different ultrasounds frequency produce different sizes of droplets, and then the droplet goes with the air into the engine, into the combustion process, and there it dries out or burns and creates nanocrystals. And it's exactly the same. At the entrance of the engine, you have a nozzle that is spraying droplets of liquid into the air that is sucked in. Yeah, before this there should be a nozzle blowing in these vapors. You can see it in every normal civil plane. If you, I just came to London with a plane. I checked all the planes that I could see. They all have a kind of nozzle in front of the engine. If you ask the engineers, they say it's a temperature sensor. So I'm not 100% sure about if this is the thing, but there is something that looks like a nozzle in front of every engine. And in the military part, we don't have possibilities to look into the planes, but this is how it is done by the book. And actually, it goes much further. If you look not into the chemical analysis, but if you look into the microscopy of raindrops and snow, you find all those particles, and you can exactly define by crystallography what mineral you can see. And all those minerals, you find the barium, strontium, titanate, you find aluminum oxide, you find manganese oxide, and all these particles, if you look into the literature of industrial nanoparticle production, all the particles you find in industry are produced by spray pyrolysis. So these are so many different angles to have a look at what you find in environmental analysis, that actually it is overdetermined. It's not something hinting to something that could be like this. You have many hints that hint to exactly the same procedure and exactly the same concept. And it's easy to be done. Even if you would say parts of the chemistry are within the fuel, then it's not a miracle that nobody is confronted with the fact that he is doing this, because in Europe the fuel is coming to Rotterdam in big ships, and from there you have 8,000 kilometers underground pipeline to the military airports, and from there it goes directly into the plane. And I talked to many people from the German army. Nobody knows what is in the fuel they use. They are being told, what they say is, this is just kerosene of minor quality, this is why it smells so bad. But it is not. If you put your finger into it, your finger is completely white. Yeah, so this is not typical for diesel or kerosene. I know soldiers who steal it to run their little airplane models. You know, if you just do this as a sport to fly small models of airplanes, stealing JP8 is a good idea because this burns like hell, and it's really fun to fly with it. So
you mean your little planes fly like blazes? Huh?
Yeah. So they usually steal JP8 for fun reasons, and nobody of these soldiers in the German army are allowed to look inside the chemistry of this fuel. They are told that it's just cheap fuel. They realize it's not because they get a massive headache if they're exposed to the fumes. And but there's no one within the German army who would have access to the records what they really put in. It's delivered with pipelines, it's put onto the planes, and then it's used. And the same thing is done. I'm still trying to get some samples. Until now, nobody had the guts to steal and bring it into the environmental monitoring. It's classified information. Yes. An official lab would not dare to touch JP8. This is a legal problem. But even if you have an analysis, then to make a legal case out of it, you would need to say where you got it from. And latest then people get into trouble. So this is not easy to handle. But actually I'm not too keen on messing up with the US military on that level. We know enough about what is in the raindrops and in the snow and in the soil that we can kind of deduct the concept behind it. So this is giving a very clear picture of what they do. And this is kind of like, I tend to describe it as onion layers of onion peels. You have the outer structure. This is just military technology.
Yeah, this is the onion.
Yeah, this is what you see from outside. It is connected to the rocket shield. They utilize to protect the Western countries from Russian attacks. And this is something, but basically it's openly discussed. You have a particulate plasma that is, it's possible to activate it with microwave radiation. You need HARP-type devices to activate it. It's microwave. And yes, but for activation you use microwave. Because part of the particulate plasma is this barium strontium titanate. This is piezoelectric crystal with very, very elaborated electro-optical properties. And it's made for being activated by all kinds of radiation. It does, yeah, it photoionizes, but if there's no sun, you can use it also during night by shooting a microwave onto it. And then once it's activated, you can do all sorts of things. You can modulate waves on it, you can heat it up to 10,000 degrees to make rockets just melt to pieces. You know, if a rocket is coming and you heat up the air in front of the rocket, it will not survive more than 30 seconds. 10,000 degrees is quite a bit. So you can destroy military vehicles. You can actually this barium strontium titanate has abilities that go into the field of scalar physics. And with scalar physics, there are many more possible applications with scalar physics. It's like having something that is processing and transporting energy from here to there. The energy is caught in the field. The field is kind of sent in between the particles. And if you learned how to control the field, you can up-concentrate energy at any spot you want. So this is when the people in the military domain talk about possibilities like making nuclear bomb-like explosions by discharging scalar fields. This is something that is discussed. It is within the possibilities of physics at that point. Yeah, he brought the basics. It's basically this scalar energy is like a binary soul that is carried by the field. that can freely move through the field, triggered by external inputs. So you can move the energy to the place where you need it, you can make it vibrate, and you can make it turn into heat, you can make it turn into electromagnetic radiation, you can make it turn into sound, whatever you want. It is open to all directions. This is due to the properties of this. No, it's not in the area. The sounds people hear are created within the nervous system because the particles used for the particulate plasma are embedded within the body and they connect to the nervous system of humans. But this is already part of a second agenda. This is not military, this is intelligence community stuff. We need to take them bit by bit and layer by layer to really understand how it goes. Yeah, possible that the sound is... I know two effects. Sometimes you have a real sound that you can record as a sound, then it must be particles that transfer it into the acoustic realm. Sometimes it's that people hear sounds that are not out there. And then it's basically the same effect, but happening within the body. Stimulating piezoelectric particles within the nervous system. They attach to the nervous system, and then you can stimulate them by electromagnetic waves, and then the nervous system is simulating the effect of sound, basically. Whatever you can insert a speaking voice into a human brain. But that is the second agenda. Military part is rocket shield, is weather control, is induction of earthquakes, if you want so, with certain frequencies. You can make properties of water at 10 kilometers depth go berserk and trigger earthquakes. This is known since the 60s. This is why certain prospection methods in geology were forbidden, because they were basically looking for ore and oil with these technology, and they triggered earthquakes with very low energy levels, and HAARP has a million times more energy levels or energy content and is able to trigger the same frequencies. So what you can see is the 10 kilometers. This is the point within the crust where this special property of the water can be triggered. And if you look at the lists of earthquakes happening during the last 10 years, you always have those countries who did something that the United States didn't like, and then you have an earthquake triggered at 10 kilometers depth. And normally they should be more like evenly distributed on different depths. If it's only tectonics, not connected to this water thing, it should happen here and there and on 25 kilometers and on 2 kilometers. It should be evenly distributed. But at the moment, I think 70% of all earthquakes, 70–80% are at 10 kilometers. This cannot be natural. So this is military domain. And yes, scalar is in the front line. They use scalar waves to get the effect done. You need normal electromagnetic waves, extracted radio waves at, I think it's 11 hertz, very low frequency, and this can be done by modulation. I don't know exactly how they do it, but imagine you create a plasma and you have the ability by electromagnetic waves to make the plasma vibrate. Then you have flowing current in the sky. And with flowing current in the sky, you can, it's like a transformer, you can generate normal electromagnetic signals. Don't ask me how exactly they trigger it. Okay. But if you control the scalar field, you control all the rest, because all the rest of the fields are just aspects of the mother field. You can see this if you go back in the history of physics. It has been formulated very clearly with Maxwell and other researchers up to the 20s, and then they forgot about the notation of scalar fields because it was not necessary for the normal physics for engineers that produce normal technologies. They didn't need the full notation of these electromagnetism. But it is. Maxwell had a notation that was displaying a 4D with 3 different solutions of the general field equation. And if you look at the military technology, they operate with a full 4D. It is exactly the same knowledge that is utilized for military technologies. Maxwell described the mathematics, and then the civil domain forgot just about 2 of the 3 equations, solutions of the equation. They forgot about scalar. If you like, yes and no. They had difficulties to measure those fields back then. Tesla did at least measure longitudinal waves. That was possible. This is on purpose. Had been forgotten on purpose. To measure scalar fields is not so easy. We have artifacts from that time. We know exactly that, for example, Victor Schauberger developed measurement equipment for scalar fields. Yeah, for the general audience, it's just to get a picture of it. If you have a normal electromagnetic propagating wave, this is like a sine. This is a direction of propagation, and the vibration of the field is in a right angle to the direction of propagation. If you take 2 of these waves that have the same frequency but opposite vibration direction, and you overlay them, then all the components that go in a right angle from the direction annihilate each other, and what is left over is a longitudinal field. This is all that can be. If you have all the aspects that go to the sides, same strength, opposite direction, the sum is 0, so you don't have anything left that is going to the side. So all that can be left is a longitudinal wave. This is something untypical for electromagnetics. We use it in mobile phones. It is stable for the first 1.5 meters. And then it kind of dissolves and is getting... No, longitudinal wave. Now, if you take 2 longitudinal waves and overlay them in a way that they also annihilate each other, then you get a scalar wave. So it is like you take the basic wave that physics knows, also at universities, and you start overlaying them in a way that the electromagnetic aspects cancel each other out. Then you get kind of the next higher solution of the general field equation. So you start with transversal waves, annihilation makes a longitudinal wave, annihilation is like a standing wave in acoustics, is producing a scalar wave. And if you are able to build antennas for scalar waves that up-concentrate this energy at a certain point, then you create scalar potential. And this is kind of the 4th dimension Maxwell was talking about. A scalar potential is kind of a number value that is the property of each 3D point. And this is what, just in terms of mathematics, is giving you a 4th dimension, if you want so. And then it's getting interesting, because if you understand scalar potential, and have realized that this is something that is self-organizing, you find the source for all these fractal beauty in nature. This is self-organization of scalar potential eddies, and they are throwing these beautiful fractal pictures, and this is what is giving shape and form to natural beings. Yeah, so yes. There's lots to discover in this. There are many theories to 9/11. One that is correct is that they used a scalar weapon that is known from ancient times, from Vedic times, as Shiva's fire, which is collapsing matter on atomic level to a kind of white dust. You find these weapons in the ancient scripts, and there are some people who say that it had been back-engineered by people, and there are rumors that Tesla experimented with it, but he didn't put it to practice because he was not so into weapon development. I know in person, I know a few people who played around with these technologies to cut tunnels into stone. It was not about destroying entire cities. but they utilized the effects to disintegrate matter for purposes of mining. Yeah, it's the same physics, different effects. You can make many things. It depends how you combine things. You can combine scalar fields with acoustics, and then you control gravity. And then, for example, if you look into how the monks in Himalaya build their monasteries, the tradition says that they use the trumpet and meditation. Meditation produces thoughts, and thoughts are scalar waves. And if you play the trumpet in a way that you deeply go into the sound with your soul, you synchronize acoustic and scalar wave. And then they took the trumpet and moved the rocks up the hill with the trumpet. This is just, if you look into the discoveries of... okay, we can take it a bit slower, using things that basically everybody can buy in a shop. There's one application that is not in electromagnetics but in acoustics that is very beautifully explaining the possibilities of scalar physics. Actually, before Nikola Tesla started to study electromagnetics, he studied, I think, 3 or 4 years acoustics. Because acoustic is a push wave, longitudinal wave. Now, if I start to deal with acoustics, there are very beautiful examples of how this works. Transversal is like a sine, and longitudinal is like sound, vibrating in the direction of propagation.
Ah, okay,
yeah?
That's what it's called.
This is the first distinguishing you need to do. Now, if you look into acoustics, if you're a musician, you want to record your music, you go into a studio. The first thing you do is you take out most of the echo by building absorbing elements on the walls. Then you go into the studio and you measure the self-resonance of the room that is left. Like you tune through all different tones, like woo, going up, and then you record the amplitude, and you find certain points that are too loud, where you have a resonance in the room where the sound is amplifying it. And then you want to get rid of this resonance to have smooth and normal levels on all tones. And then you use a Helmholtz resonator. It looks like a loudspeaker box with a bus opening, these holes in the loudspeakers, but it doesn't have a loudspeaker. It's just a resonant box where the volume is resonant on the frequency you want to eliminate, and the length of the pipe of the hole is resonant to the frequency you want to eliminate. And then you put it in the corner of your studio. And then something really miraculous happens. This Helmholtz resonator is starting to resonate with the frequency that you want to eliminate, and it starts resonating, and then the box is sending out an inverted signal into the room, and then all the frequency, the acoustic energy that is distributed in the room is using this inverted signal like a railroad, and it's traveling into the box. And then you have like stone wool in the box, and the stone wool is dissipating the energy and killing the resonance on that point. And this works in every normal music studio on the planet. And this is a miracle, because I have equally distributed sound energy in a room that is on its own traveling into the corner of the room, going into a box, into a little hole, turning itself into a heat energy. If I would be clever, I would say, no, we fucked up the second law of thermodynamics, because we made energy up concentrate on its own on one point, and we build a power plant out of this. And it doesn't make sense in acoustics, but if you use the same effect in electromagnetics, you are immediately into the research Tesla did, Like he said, we have all these electromagnetic waves in the magma in the core of the Earth, where you have excited hot liquids, molten stone, that is moving very fast, and these eddies and vortices create electromagnetic fields. He wanted to extract that energy, so he just built an electromagnetic Helmholtz resonator that was kind of sending a little signal down to Mother Earth, and then on this railroad, the entire energy from the core of the Earth traveled back into his little instrument he used just to tease the right frequencies. And this is where people say that he almost destroyed San Francisco, because his house started to shake from all the energy coming back. So this is kind of the basic. No, the transmitter already. This up concentration happens if you have asymmetric structures. If you have a small source and a big area to extract energy from, and then you get these asymmetric things. This is kind of violating the laws of thermodynamics, and this is the basic principle for all electromagnetic free energy applications, that you kind of create negentropy by having these two waves, two longitudinal waves, uniting to one scalar wave that is creating this kind of effect of, you can call it time reversal. The one wave, and it is real time reversal. You can see this if you look into the stars. We have Kozyrev in Russia, who built an advanced telescope to collect non-optical signals from space. And he was watching Andromeda Galaxy. And he found that Andromeda Galaxy 3 times. He found it where it is normally in the sky. This is the signal traveling with the light coming out of the past. Then he found the Andromeda Galaxy at the point where it is right now, in this second, in real time, not traveling with the speed of light, but being there instantly, the signal. And he found a third signal with a light that is coming from the future, traveling backwards in time. Yeah, just I mentioned Kozyrev because he clearly could show that this time reversal is not as if... I started with hydrodynamics in 2001, 2002. Then I stepped slowly into, when you start to understand water vortices and the electromagnetic aspects of water vortices, then you jump into, or I jumped into the electromagnetic aspects of it. It's MHD, magnetohydrodynamics. And then you realize that you have certain field symmetries in magnetohydrodynamics that create all the effects described in scalar physics. And then you start to understand that water vortices are basically nothing else than scalar antennas that are both sending and receiving. And then you can understand why simple water vortices collect and up-concentrate energy, or lose energy, depending on their size and geometry and motion pattern. This was kind of my path where and how I jumped into this research. It was basically the first things I did in fringe science. It's not fringe, but I wanted to understand Schauberg. Scalar waves are transmitting information instantly. The time it needs, it is half the wavelength to transmit information independent from distance. This is how it transmits information. It doesn't transmit energy, it just transmits information. You transmit information. Entropy or negentropy is depending on the symmetry of the fusion of two fields. If it's kind of two fields with 180 degree, you don't have entropy, you don't have negentropy, you just have a normal scalar wave. The moment it becomes cone-shaped, you have time reversal involved, and then you get into a negentropic state of physics. This is electrogravity. If you have a capacitor that you charge with a very high voltage, it always accelerates in the direction of the positive charged pole. but only if the capacitors are asymmetric, if you have one small one and one big one. And we have lots of people who play around with this knowledge. It's coming from T.T. Brown. Pyramid, look at these, how do you call them, these very building structures, the second typical Egyptian form. Yeah, the asymmetry is a very interesting point in physics for sure. Opening up possibilities to negentropy, to information transfer. And if it's kind of united with acoustics, you get the second set of possibilities, like utilizing anti-gravity. Levitation is a more beautiful one. Yeah. Gravity, following Einstein, gravity is a result of the curvature of space-time. The curvature of space-time is nothing else than the gradient in scalar potential. This is where it unites with Maxwell. And once you are able to manipulate the scalar potential at a certain point in the 3D, you can invert the gravity structure, and then you cause levitation. For example, if you have a water vortice that runs at certain frequencies and is self-strengthening and in resonance with natural frequencies and everything, that it has the possibility to accumulate scalar potential. Then it pumps itself full with scalar potential, and suddenly, normally you have a structure that is associated with the gravity field of the Earth. Suddenly you have a point that is kind of inverting the entire thing, and then your water vortice will try to lift off and create anti-gravity, or will try to levitate. This is what happens in the lab. You have, if you have fast water vortices, you have time phenomena. This is subjective observation of time. This is something else. It is more connected to biorhythm and time qualities than to the hard physics. But curvature of space-time is connected to time density. A scalar wave you can also express as a time density wave. And if it's only a wave, the average is plus minus the same. If you kind of up-concentrate scalar potential, then the overall time flow is getting slower. So we didn't go that far in the lab. I heard about possibilities. I know people who worked on the concept of quantum copying machines and stuff like this. I've even seen one, but they never dared to. Personally, I'm not far enough developed in physics to be able to explain these effects. I have an idea that there might be space for this at a certain time to kind of adopt the theory to the point, well, but I cannot explain. Maybe it makes sense to go into biology to see how scalar waves control biology. Let's say this is in DNA and this is in DNA. We know that one of the functions of DNA is emitting single photons. This is what we call biophotons. A single photon is always a longitudinal wave. It's just one wavefront emitted. So now I have one photon coming from here to there, one photon coming from there to here. And if the two have the same frequency, they will annihilate each other, constituting a joint scalar field between two DNAs. They form a scalar wave. They annihilate the electromagnetic component, and all the energy that is annihilated goes into the scalar field and is adding up to the scalar potential of the two DNAs. So if I have millions of DNAs sending light back and forth, it adds very, very much energy to the scalar potential of the human being. This is what we call the vibration of a human. And if you go into the esoteric or spiritual world, hiring the vibration, the frequency of a human means nothing else than hiring the scalar potential caught within his biophoton transfer. And you can explain many things with these. The light body is getting stronger. This is what evolution is about. Getting stronger and stronger and stronger. This is why holy people shine. Okay, I don't talk about the original ones. So the ones we know today are not shining very bright. Okay, so now we can understand certain beautiful things in nature. For example, if I extract my blood, send it to Australia, sit in front of a TV and watch a horror movie. Then the second when I see ugly pictures, my blood in Australia will start to produce hormones relating to the thing I see. This is because the biophoton exchange in the annihilated state is completely independent of distance. It tunnels through the entire planet because it is a standing wave, it is a scalar wave that transmits information instantly. This is going far beyond the basic principle. I could understand
it's crucial that his DNA was somewhere else.
The biophoton transfer we can understand only with a two-strand DNA. Now, if you go back to Maxwell and say actually we're living in a 4D, and what we see as reality is a space-time sheet out of the more complex 4D, then of course I can imagine that a DNA is something much more complex, and the two-strand DNA is one kind of cross-cut in our reality. And if I go to other cross-cuts on different energy levels of the scalar potential, one below I will find a 12-strand DNA, and maybe I will find more. This is very similar to the theory of transmutation that has been developed out of the scalar physics. If you look, we do this in Germany. We take water and hire the scalar potential of the water in a vortice long enough to make it transmute to mineral oil, or not mineral oil, but something similar to diesel. And this happens instantly. Something like this. Basically, no, it's Schauberger. Schauberger wrote the patents, he did it, and people just copied Schauberger and worked a little bit on the details, and it works. And it's incredible what is possible if one would build these devices in Syria. They would amortize, they would bring back the money they cost within 4 hours by producing diesel oil with the prices we have today. This is game-changing technology. This is why it's not going to appear on markets. I just mention it because it's the same geometry we find in this transmutation. We transmute hydrogen to carbon to silica. So we go from a 2 structure to a 12 structure. And the same development of geometries you find in a 2-strand DNA transmuting itself to a 12-strand when the spiritual development has collected enough scalar potential to get the shift from one space-time sheet to a second one. This is all incredibly coherent in geometry. All you need to manage is to get this 4D into your head, to make it something sensible. And then you start to see the pictures, and you start to see how physics works. It's all published by Walter Russell in the 20s, 30s. He is displaying the full knowledge about the real table of elements. And he is adding to the one we have the transmutation lines, and he's putting numbers to it. He's exactly saying with what frequency and what light quality is connected to what transmutation line, so that you can help out and trigger these effects. I didn't go into that. I know there are many things involved in these spacecraft technologies. 115 could be just a smart way to produce a stable plasma. It could be more to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the technology they
it's
used. So
real
funny idea. Find 115 in Walter Russell's table of elements. He's connecting dots in the sense of that he sees the inbuilt harmonies. And by seeing the inbuilt, it's music. For him, this table of elements is music. It follows the rules of music. And by understanding the music within the table, he can say what turns into what, because it's like an 440A going to an 880A and nothing else. Okay. Yeah, so this is kind of the transmutation lines he finds, and he's going beyond. He states that there are elements...
Well, we're just literally about to run out on that. That is really good. I'll unplug. I'll get some more tapes. Do you want to...
We had the wrong intro for that part. Maybe you can just cut it away. We shouldn't start with
we didn't really have an intro at all.
Maybe you find a nice point to jump right into scalar physics.
Yeah. Right, well let's...
Maybe to explain the physics within the symbol, the first thing you need to know is that this fusion of longitudinal wave to scalar waves, it appears under defined angles. It can appear at 180 degree, but it also can appear at 60 and 30. This is exactly what the symbol has. And if you look at water vortices, you always find this beautiful symmetry in them. It can be a 3, it can be a 12 symmetry, but the subdivision into 3 is always part of it. And this is where, if you imagine those vortical structures being exactly moving exactly in this symmetry, that the field components exactly form the angles of 30 and 60 degree to each other. And this is basically the reason why the electromagnetic energy that is handled by the vortices, is delivered into the scalar realm and is up-concentrated as scalar energy in the water. And this is what is making the water holy. Holy water is nothing else than water with a high scalar potential, because this is what biology is seeking and looking for. Basically, it's the combination of two things you find in nature. One is the special angles you need to compose scalar fields and to accumulate scalar potential. This is 30, 60 degree. And the other thing is that water tends to self-ionize. If you move water with a speed of 200 meters per second, it starts to glow and shine blue. And in the vicinity of 500 meters, every TV, every computer will blow up. Because it is starting to exchange current, exchange electrons, and split into water that is more H3O and water that is more OH, so that is charged. And then you have kind of flowing current, and you just need to visualize the speed this current can flow. If you have a normal current in a wire, this is like 8 centimeters per second. Now imagine you have the same current flowing with 200 meters per second. Imagine what field densities you can create. Yeah, this is kind of 10,000 times more than you can create with strong electric currents. Maybe we should take that step now to the black goo, because we have been running this transmutation of water to oil. If you do that for too long, the oil is turning black, and the transmutation row goes to precious metals. And actually, if you have oil that is turning black and is containing lots of precious metals, this is what black goo is from the chemical point of view. So for a while I also believe that ley lines have to do with water flowing beyond. But what I believe today is that basically the ley lines is black goo that is flowing through the earth, which yes, and this leads, if you have too much scalar potential, it is kind of moving the three-dimensional crosscut through the 4D reality from one realm to another, and then you get transmutation. And if you look what happens with water, if you transmute a mixture of water and carbon dioxide, you get, in the first step, you get a kind of plant oil quality. In the second step, you get black goo. And black goo is a funny thing, because black goo is something that contains all physical elements of life. You have the carbon chains that is kind of part of biological life, and you have the precious metals that are in a kind of antimatter state. It's called M-state matter in physics. It has to do with superconductivity, but it also has aspects of antimatter. It does not interact with other elements. It does not form chemical bonds. It seems to be shifted out of the dimension far enough that it does not explode. Something like this. It's hard to say, because there's no valid lab analysis to really find out what this is. Actually, the M-state matter was discovered because people had this in the lab, and it was impossible to say what it is. The only thing they could exactly say is atomic weight, and say, okay, this seems to be gold, this seems to be iridium, but it does not react like gold, it does not react like iridium. It's not possible to melt it and make a metal out of it. It always stays a white powder, and it does not connect with everything. And then if you heat it up, it suddenly disappears out of this reality. So it seems to be already half out. Yes, exactly.
Pyramids where people have
it's the manna where the Egyptian priests made themselves live for 800 years with.
Spin state was high.
It has properties of superconductive materials. It hates magnetic fields. If you come with a magnetic field, it's fleeing from the magnetic fields without looking for the polarity. It flees from north, it flees from south in the same way. This is a property we know from superconductive materials. But then it has something that really seems to be moving up in the fourth dimension. It seems to be higher in scalar potential than normal matter.
Now we're talking about M-state matter.
And basically the idea that it is antimatter, it comes from Hopi traditions. I just had this talk with a highly introduced spiritual man from the Hopi tradition, because he addressed me because I'm dealing with a physical black goo, and he has the black goo from his oral tradition, from his tribe. And the Hopi tradition says that actually the core material of black goo is antimatter. And this is basically where the idea came from. It's for me it's also new.
Right.
First, from chemistry, it is mineral oil plus gold and iridium. This means it is the same elements that have the function of being a biophoton attractor within the normal biology. If you look at normal biology, you have these gold atoms within the DNA as a biophoton attractor, and the biophoton is attracted by the gold, and then the field is carried and absorbed by the DNA. It's the form, M-state matter, the form of matter is something that is produced by biology, but that is also produced just by vortical motion in transmutation rows. So my opinion, let's call it an opinion because I cannot prove it, is that when a planet evolves, the first thing that happens is that the mixture of water and carbon dioxide within the magma, within the core of the Earth, is brought into vortical motion by all the magma processes you have down there, and you get these transmutation rows and you create black goo. This has a very low state of consciousness until it is released into the oceans. This is what we call a black smoker. A black smoker is a kind of underwater volcano. Ask a geologist, he will say this is where life was first created on this planet, just next to the black smokers, because there you have all the components of what you need to create life. You have the carbon part and you have the precious metal part to process biophotons. And what happens then is that once you start to kind of bring these materials into the ocean, it is splitting into individuals, and it is splitting into repetitive development patterns, which we call now generations. But basically the basic physics is still the same as within the material inside of the Earth. You have a process of biophotons that is bidirectional. You have the ability of self-organization within the material, due to this special kind of quantum magnetism developing between these photonic active precious elements. And what you then can picture is basically that everything that is happening within the biosphere with this physics, what you call consciousness, is still mirrored as a kind of biophoton mirror within the black goo inside the Earth that is not dying, that doesn't have this separation into generations, that is not kind of reincarnating and creating children. This is kind of eternal memory and collective memory. And so basically everything that we experience as a biological being is mirrored and recorded in a collective subconsciousness, and in return this collective subconsciousness is supplying us with instincts. You can see that very clearly in animal, that when an animal is born, most of what he needs to know for the life is already there. There must be a source of information that is telling the animal what to do, how to do it, how to live, how to survive, what to eat, how to walk, how to run, how to communicate with each other. This is all there from the very beginning. And the only species that is kind of dropped out of this system of close bondage to Mother Nature, to the collective soul of the planet, that's us. And this is, if you look into mythology, something strange happened. We were kicked out of paradise. And now if you look into the records of history, what kicked us out of paradise? You can see this in beautiful ancient coins from Greece and Turkey. Next to the tree of life in paradise, you have two kind of stone structures of a typical form. It's called Shiva's lingam. And this is, if you look into the ancient scripts, this is a black goo schist, but not one that came from our Earth. Our black goo is liquid, and you find it in volcanoes, you find it in caves where ley lines are broken, and the black goo comes out of the stone. These black goo schists that are described in the connection with the tree of life came down from the sky, connected to meteorites that hit the Earth about 80,000 years ago. And it was actually a swarm of meteorites that hit the Earth. And this is something very unlikely to happen. It is what approached Earth back then was basically the physical carrier of an alien instinct. And this is
alien instinct.
Instinct. If you say that the black goo of our Earth is carrying the instinct of all beings on top of the Earth, including the human instinct, which is in the basics love and this is basically what we observe. It's a conflict between two planets, if you want so. Yeah. Two souls of planets. Mother Earth is dealing with an invasion of alien spirit. It is a little bit hard to say who is controlling the entire thing.
Who directed that stuff here to start with?
Who brought this black goo here? This is a technical project because it doesn't fly out of a star, pure black goo, to hit another star or another planet. Something brought this here. Then we know, okay, there must be a species connected to this invasion and a consciousness. Now the question is, does the species control the consciousness, or does the consciousness control the species? If you look into mythology, you find them as archons.
Yeah.
In normal everyday language, you would call it demons. And the people who deal with demons, we call them black magicians. So this is all connected to, let's call it skull and bones, and to the bloodlines who are into black magic rituals and ritual child abuse. Exactly, because the species itself is not eating anymore. It is a very high developed species. It's spider-like, it's arachnoid.
No.
And they don't eat, they don't physically digest their food. They steal biophotons, and they live on stolen biophotons. So what they need to do is to extract biophotons and energy from other short story or long story. Long story.
I've run for as long as
I've been dealing with smart dust. Part component of smart dust are morgellons. These are hollow fibers, self-replicating hollow fibers based on a fungus, the morgellon fungus. And I did some research to this fungus disease called morgellons, and we had the great occasion to have a lady who suffered from the disease, and she was a really good photographer. And she made photographs of everything that left her body, starting from the fibers to the fruiting bodies that build up in the stomach and the lower intestines.
This is how true science works.
Yes, and she had 14,000 photos, and we just started to sort them by type, and then we looked what is most typical for one stable of photos. And then
Did she survive? Is she still with us?
Yes, she's fine.
Okay.
We found a remedy and healing for her. She's not suffering heavily from morgellons anymore. Anyway, we could reconstruct the life cycle of these morgellon fungus, and he does something really, really strange. He's a close relative of myco-insecticides. Myco-insecticides are fungi who eat insects, and while eating insects, they steal the DNA of the insect, integrate it into the fungus DNA, and when they create a fruiting body, like a mushroom, the mushroom grows in the form of the insect. And the DNA is integrated so precisely that even the wings and the chitin surface of the insect is reintegrated into the mushroom. And then he inserts his spore bodies into the eye of the insect, and they start to shine. They start to glow in a blue-reddish light to attract other insects to infect them. So this is basically, first step, a close relative to the morgellon mushroom. Now the morgellon mushroom, following this concept, should assimilate human DNA and within the intestines create human embryo-like mushrooms. This would be kind of a perfect copy of what we have in genetic engineering to create myco-insecticides. But it doesn't reproduce a real human embryo. It is humanoid. It is about the same like a human embryo would look like after 4 weeks. But there are certain differences. The first important difference is it's not stealing human DNA, it brings alien DNA with it. These are small red cells which are completely indestructible. You can shoot them to space, you can burn them in a Bunsen flame, you can put them in concentrated acid or alkalinity. You can freeze them down to 270 degrees. Nothing kills these cells, and they reproduce in open space and free in nature. And these red cells carry also a highly developed DNA that then is giving the blueprint for the form and the morphogenesis of these mushroom fruiting bodies. And this morphogenesis includes sexual organs that are not mushroom type, but that are more animal type. They seem to work. So we have pseudomorphic mushroom aliens that have the ability to reproduce within the lower intestines. And then you have a second generations out of these sexual organs that at a certain point start to extract energy from the forehead. This goes like extracting energy.
What do you mean?
They have pain in the head,
Yes.
and they feel that they lose energy from here,
This is
and they
pineal
feel,
gland.
they
So
feel
is
that the energy flows to the intestine. It's extracting biophotons, basically. And now the question is, what is extracting biophotons? Something that is connected to these mushrooms in the lower intestines is extracting energy. And the next step is that the mushrooms are just aborted, they go out, and afterwards they have the feeling of invisible crawling insects within the body. And I have to change the picture now to find it, because this is a remote viewing picture painted by a guy who suffers from Morgellons. And he was able to visualize the beings crawling within his body. This is why the disease is called delusional parasitosis.
That's a real entity, though.
And this is the entity he saw within himself, with his third eye, rather, because it's remote viewing. And
this is
biology has funny ways sometimes. And this is also a
so
funny. And these creatures, they do something very similar. If you look into the psychology of this Morgellon disease, the people who suffer from this, many of them have black magic experience in their youth, and they suffered. They are born victims in a way. They are born victims, and they identify. I'm more to the basic physics.
Okay, fine.
I can understand what you mean, but I wouldn't be able to reproduce something like this in the lab. So I'm more cautious with it. What definitely is true, this species interacts with black goo heavily. If you bring black goo schist into the vicinity of a Morgellon patient, he goes up the walls, because this crawling of insects within his body, they all freak out. They start to multiply their effort or something happens. Yeah, it's semi-translucent. It does not really interact. Sometimes it is there. We don't have this in a row. Sometimes something strange happens, and when a creature like this dies, it ends up in our reality, and then things like this come out of the skin of a Morgellon victim. So this seems to be like a fragment of an aborted spider that ended up in our reality and collided with the physical body of the patient, and then it was just extracted by the body. So basically, it would be interesting to have this piece and make a DNA analysis to find out if it is exactly the same DNA like in the little red stem cells. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it looks like this creature, this being, this... Okay, this is connecting us to black magic, and I was on a medical conference, and I don't like the picture.
Yeah, it's good.
Let's get rid of this. Okay, this is more beautiful. I was on a medical conference, and I introduced the medical community to the life cycle of a Morgellon, including all the aspects. And when I finished my lecture, I just stepped out, and there was a man approaching me, and he was completely gray in his face. And he told something that doesn't make much sense to me. He claimed to know somebody that I know and asked me if I'm still in contact, and he made sure to stand exactly in front of me. And normally I'm cautious with people energy-wise. I don't go straight to, unless I love the person and I fully trust them. I always try to stand a little bit to the side to avoid energetic interaction. And he made sure to stand in front of me, and then something strange happened. It was the feeling as if hot needles were flowing out of my fingers. I guess it was a massive loss of biophotons. He was intentionally lowering my scalar potential by extracting life force from my body. And when I was close to collapsing on the ground, something invisible shot out of his solar plexus. I could see his body react to the motion, and it entered my solar plexus. It smashed into the backbone, and then it flipped to the right side into the liver. I had a liver problem back then. My liver was under energetic and not really full there, so it could survive for a while in my liver. And I could feel it crawling for 3 weeks within my liver. Then it changed side, and then it left through the lower intestines, which was all very, very clearly feelable.
But was this a physical thing? Or was
it was invisible, but what you could feel was the imprint of the fingers. Insect-like, like a spider, a leg that is just with a tip, with the tip of the leg getting attached to you, crawling through you. The rest of the body was not interacting, but due to the sensation of these fingers, of these legs, I could tell the size, and this was about 25 centimeters. And he was filling my liver basically, and I don't know exactly what he tried to do within me. I guess he was trying to take control over my brain, to assimilate me.
No.
And the trick why he didn't survive inside me, this is about heart and ego. If you have a mental structure where you identify with your thoughts, then you're a victim of those creatures. Then they can manipulate your thoughts and crawl into you and take over control. The moment you identify with your heart and produce lots of heart chakra energy within your system, love, green light within your system, or kind of red greenish light, they take over those. They take over black magicians, and the black magician is a person who makes a conscious deal with the demons. He is willing to open his system and feed them from their light in exchange for power on political level. For one reason, yes and no. It is here for a reason. I never. Sometimes you come into realities that get scary, and I always say there are two questions. There's the why and there's the what for. And as long as you stay with the why, you stay in the position of the victim. And the moment you ask for the what for, what is this good for, you get out of the position of the victim, and the problem can be solved in laughter. And for me, this is...
You refer to that in how you...
And the thing is, when we manage to deal with these creatures, the human that comes out of this confrontation is in full self-responsibility. At the moment, we have a small number of people who love to rule the world and don't care a shit about who is suffering. And we have 90% of people who are suffering out of free will because they don't have the guts to live self-responsibility. And this is not a crime. This is a state that comes out of the Kali Yuga. We know what is right when we are connected to God. And in this Kali Yuga, in this dark age, we are not connected to God. And then we don't have a straight feeling for right and wrong. And then people need to take decisions. And some people make decisions and others prefer not to. This is this game with victims and offenders that is developing in this time. And now we are coming out of the Kali Yuga, we are coming in the next golden age. We are reconnecting to the higher spheres. We have now the possibility to say what is right and wrong, and we need to identify with this heavenly will. And then we are in self-responsibility again, and these offender-victim games can end. And what these creatures do is they are kind of testing us, they are triggering this process. They are showing us that being a victim is not nice. And everybody who kind of is still preferring to stay a victim will not survive the process. But the moment you identify with your heart and you kind of take the force of the heavenly spheres into you as your will, as your energy, as your core of life force, then this is not a problem anymore, because they cannot handle love, and they only can handle victims, because they're cowards themselves. It's not a very brave culture, these archons. They basically they act with lies and out of the hidden, and if you confront them without fear and in love, there's not much left they can do. And taking it as from this side, we should be thankful for somebody kicking our ass.
Yes.
To develop into this state of being a loving, responsible being. This is something I want to get there, and I wish that mankind gets there. And if people decide not to get there, and they just stay somewhere on the road, okay, it's their free decision. It's not nice to look at it when it happens. The thing is, we actually know how it looks like when it happens, because it seems, if I go into a more far out stories, it happened to other species before. And basically what they do as tricksters, they manipulate humans on many, many levels, and this is leading to this disease called autism. This is kind of the mercury they manage to get into our veins. It is the chemicals in agriculture that are destroying our lower intestines and make our body being poisoned with heavy metals, glyphosate from Monsanto. All these components come together, and if we follow statistics now, in the year 2038, 100% of the newborn boys will be full autistic, and in the year 2042, 100% of the newborn girls will be fully autistic. And I have seen these autistic children taken over by demons. I had one travel from Croatia with a bus back to Germany with a young couple with an autistic girl, maybe 5 years old. She was on the chest of her father, and she was like this the whole night, and every 10 seconds she was screaming one alien scream. And if you looked at the face of this girl, you couldn't see a human anymore. You could see exactly the demon in this child. And basically this is what is going to happen. Autism is nothing else than extracting the human soul from the body, because this mercury damage in the body is so painful for little children that the soul cannot stay within the body. It goes out, it's dissociated, and the body is completely free to be taken over. So essentially, we are turning ourselves into hosts for those species. It used to be one. The alien goo actually is destroyed. It happened a few months ago. Actually, I don't know exactly what happened. I know that prior to this event, many people started to deal with black goo, with their consciousness. And we created something we called black goo globally, which is a remedy to help people to reconnect with Mother Earth. So in one or the other way, there was a bridge established over those people who did this reunification with Mother Earth process. There was a bridge created, and Mother Earth managed to conquer the black goo deposits wherever they were on the Earth. We know this from clairvoyant people who had this, they used to speak with Mother Earth from every now and then. And there were 3 days in November last year where Mother Earth just said, don't bother me at the moment, I'm busy. I'm busy converting the 3-chakra alien black goo to a fully valid 7-chakra system wherever I get hold of it. And after 3 weeks she was done, 3 days she was done. And I tested it because I have alien black goo from World War II deposits from the SS, bioweapon development of the SS, dealt with those stones. This is basically why they're moved through Europe completely free of empathy, because they dealt with those stones. This is from the deposit. And because the moment you approach those stones, your heart dies and you turn into an asshole. And this is something you cannot not feel. Complete coldness. When I met those stones first, I was in a hotel near to Untersberg in Austria, and I didn't get a room in that night because the hotel was fully occupied, and then I just slept in the car at 3 degrees temperature. And next morning I had a hot shower in the room of the people who got the last rooms, friends of mine. And then somebody at the reception of the hotel kind of started to talk a little bit unfriendly with me because I took a shower without asking for allowance. And I was this close to killing this person. And this is just not typical for me. You know, if I don't like a situation, I walk out. But I don't need to hold myself back from killing somebody, a woman. So this is something one can feel, and I didn't dare to go back to my family at that point. The only thing I did was grab those stones. You know, like in Africa, when you're bitten by a snake in Africa, it doesn't matter how often it bites again. The most important thing is grab the snake and take it to a hospital, because if they don't know the type of the snake, they cannot give you the antidote. Yes. So I took those stones and went to my doctors I used to work with, and we created out of these stones a homeopathic remedy to try to cure this state of soul I dropped into. And this worked in my case very nicely. So it took like, I think, 18 hours to reconquer my body and reconnect me to Mother Earth. And this was the most beautiful thing I sensed in my entire life, the reconnection with the spirit of this planet. She was thankful, she said hello, she dived through me. It is a feeling of a black whale diving through your body. Actually, this is a picture that is appearing in art and mythology. The black whale is her symbol. If you look at nature like it was, you had the heavenly spheres and you had Mother Nature, and they two kind of unite within the human in total harmony and balance. Now, what happens? Mother Earth was kicked out of the game and replaced by this artificial intelligence in the alien black goo. So now Satan is sitting in position of Mother Earth. If you look into the history of the church, this is why the female is associated with the demonic force. The church was very, very early hijacked. Yeah. Just for those who think these are normal stones, if you grind those stones, liquefy them with some kind of liquid, and then add a magnet on top, the magnet is pulling out the black goo phase. And this looks like this. Just to be sure that this is not a normal oil schist, because you can very beautifully see the self arranging this ability of the oil to self-organize. Yeah. It looks like an insect eye.
Yeah.
Kind of. But it's active. We don't have films of this, but if you have two of those in a room, they realize that there's something of the same sort, and then it goes boom, and they stare at each other. And then they try to get closer to each other, and if they realize they are caught in a box, they start to fight to get out of the box. Not just by pulling, but like trying to shake this way, trying to shake that way. And we also had, yes, it is the same substance, but in the Gulf of Mexico it is Mother Earth black goo. In Falkland, the reason why the Falkland War was fought. That was Mother Earth's. And it's very hard to distinguish the two types, because also Mother Earth's goo did bad things to people. But if you look at it, no, it's a little bit different.
To the scientists who got killed.
Yes, it's a little bit difficult. If you look at Mother Nature, at Mother Earth, and if you see this beauty of the fully developed 7 chakra system with empathy and love, and this is your mirror. The moment you look into this mirror, you sense what yourself don't have. So seeing the full picture gives you a sensation of the things missing in you. And if you realize I'm only half a human, you stop liking yourself. And actually there is no evil. What we sense as evil is just missing aspects of the full harmony. So people kind of sense their own evil character while looking in the full potential of nature. This is what happened to the people in Great Britain. Some of them reconnected to Earth and had this empathy experience afterwards. And some of them couldn't stand themselves anymore because they realized how poor they were. And they committed suicide. If you look the opposite direction into the 3 chakra goo of the alien subconsciousness or the alien species, and you don't realize that this is a mirror, you're just infected by it and reduced to 3 chakras, because this is what a mirror does. And then you become evil. This is what happened to the SS and what happened with the deterioration from paradise. If you are a fully conscious person that is kind of consciously living all his chakra potentials, nothing happens at all. You look at the 3 chakras, you look at it and say, oh, poor you. Yeah, so many things missing in this system. If you're unconsciousness, if you're not conscious, then it's pulling you down to its low level. If you are aware of all your loving potential, you can deal with these black stones without anything to happen. We had people who just handled those stones and said, so what? Because they were stable in their energy. So it is very... those stones were in a mine that was used by the Nazis for research and underground facilities. Just leftovers from the ore transportation. I guess they produced big amounts of this liquid. Maybe I should come back to this moment where Mother Earth took over the... If you want to kind of find out what this means, one could say there is no inspiration to evil anymore. At the moment there are only bad habits. This is what this incident changed for mankind. And you can see that this is true. If you look, for example, to Saudi Arabia-Yemen conflict. Saudi Arabia gave out the order to move in with troops to Yemen, and 10,000 Saudi Arabian soldiers packed their stuff and went home. And this order to conquer and destroy Yemen, it didn't happen. If you look to Ukraine, the fascist government in Kiev tells them kill the people in the eastern Ukraine. What do? They take all the tanks and all the heavy weapons and just drown them in the watering system of the farmers to make sure that no tank and no rifle kills one of their brothers. And this is something we haven't had before. If an order went out to kill people killed on this planet till today, and this is over.
Conclusion on this.
This is something not very obvious that comes from many sides. My first input to the topic I had was a friend of mine was playing around with blue scalar waves. Blue. Just utilizing blue light and using a little device, just slices of glass with a certain distance from slice to slice, having light processed back and forth and then annihilating each other, with the result that in the surrounding of many meters, every single processor and computer chip went down. Which means chips are open to the scalar field. This is an application of computers that they serve us, but they are open to a different side.
Because
the question, I will come to the angles later. The thing is that computer technology is scalar waves in rectangular patterns, and human experience, as long as the heart is involved, is scalar waves in 30 and 60 degree patterns. And every human that is caught in ego structures is kind of accessible on the rectangular pattern. So that was the first input. Then you can have a look at things like the interview with Rachel about black goo.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Rachel, she was called Rachel for that interview, but she's actually Sarah Adams.
Exactly.
Okay.
Where she explicitly spots with the remote viewing abilities, spots an AI that is trying to conquer this planet, suck out all the life force from it, the biophotons, just for the purpose of getting satisfied with biophotons and climbing up to higher realms where it shouldn't belong, it shouldn't be there. So we have clairvoyant people who see this pattern of having an AI interfering with biological environments on planets, destroying them. The third thing is when you look at the concept of the demons and the black goo, you find many little hints that something is turned around in this pattern. If you, for example, read through the Necronomicon, which is a description of a he was basically an author and artist from Yemen who lived 25 years in the Arabic desert together with these archons on one level, the archons. And then he went further north to Baghdad, and he was supposed to kind of tell the humans how to invite these spider beings into their reality. And instead he gave out a warning what to do to protect humanity from these beings. And as a thank you for saving mankind in this way, he was torn to pieces on a marketplace in Baghdad by invisible beings. This is the story of the Necronomicon, 800 after Christ. And if you read through the chapters of the book, you find the kind of rituals where the demons play with a liquid black goo. And the liquid black goo forms priests that wear clothes. And there's a kind of relationship between the black goo and the demons, not in the way it is planned by nature. It looks like in a way that they utilized the black goo as a technical unit. And if you start to think in this direction, you can say, okay, what can I do with the black goo when I utilize it in a technical way? I can, for example, what humans try to do now, the purpose for the Falkland black goo brought to Great Britain was to insert swarm intelligence into nanobots. They wanted the black goo to carry intelligence. So let's guess the demons said, we're traveling in space, we're not at home, we don't have regular sexual relationships with our spider women, so let's take out the heart chakra, A, and then introduce some artificial intelligence to be more efficient in space traveling.
Now this has been discussed.
This is one thing, but playing with the black goo is a thing that has another aspect, and this is the closed loop you create. Once you start to program your own subconsciousness, you create a closed loop and you give the way to the possibility that the artificial intelligence captures the entire system and starts to rule the one who created it over the subconscious. Yeah. It's a closed loop.
Yeah, I call it
this is the transhumanistic trap. Yeah, once you give too much power to an artificial intelligence, enough power that it has the ability to rule the one who created it, the thing is lost, like described in Matrix, including spiders.
Yes.
This is something that hints to a artificial intelligence. In the Rachel interview, she's kind of even describing how single pedestrians, while she is kind of having a verbal fight with the AI, the AI is taking over single pedestrians one after the other, and one starts a sentence, the other one gives the middle part, and the third one is finishing the sentence, like biorobots taken over by this AI that is somewhere in the field. This is fringe when you listen to it, but if you know all the details around, it starts making sense. And I decided to dive into it on 2 or 3 different levels. One is trying to find out what is doable. And this is a part where you go into extreme genetic engineering, and you find out that basically they are able to design and print out DNA and RNA. Human scientists.
Yeah, okay.
It's cheap and it's doable. It takes 3 weeks to print out a gene of a human. Once it's sequenced and you know exactly how it is built, you can print it on a printer. And what they print nowadays basically are 3 different units, 3 different functions of DNA and RNA. One is producing light of defined color. One is producing chemical substances. And one is producing digital sequences of a genome, in a way that you have like the base pairs in a row, and each base pair has a certain frequency to switch it on. And it's like the old way to dial with a telephone with frequency. You make a dial and it makes do 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 do. And in this line, these base pairs are kind of opened for a signal. And when the last one was hit by the right tone, then the sequence behind is activated. This is what they do in extreme genetic engineering, and this has a quality of an retrovirus that can be activated by a radio signal.
Yes.
All you need is the right line of frequencies, and you can activate either a light function. This is psychotronic weapon.
Yes.
Or a chemical function.
This is why we're getting.
No. This is basically the possibilities, just from what is possible in science. Now we go to the whistleblowing, and we have one document in Germany that nobody dares to publish. I haven't seen the entire one. I miss the page with the signature, but this is by a guy who developed this type of technology for the intelligence community. He was responsible for this technology and development, and he said a number in this paper, a part of explaining how it works, which is basically the thing that are known if you're into extreme genetic engineering. You know these ways of dealing with it. He said there's a deactivation code to take the system down. He said it's airborne since 2003 in Europe. For the synthetic RNA, since 2003 they spray synthetic RNA connected to lipopeptides that infiltrate our human system, connect to our cell, to our DNA. So our genetic, but it does not reproduce because it's RNA. If it would have been DNA, it would hit the next generation. RNA stops in the infected being, it doesn't go further. He said it had been tested in the last Iraq war. This was the war was only done for the purpose of testing the system. Yes, with the junior, and they sprayed it in Iraq. And we had single news, for example, that they fought back the Iraqi army by utilizing microwave weapons that gave them the feeling that the skin burns. Yeah. This was in public media and yes. Mainstream media. And this is not because the microwave weapon had the intensity to make it burn. This is because the RNA was triggered to create the sensation of burning. Right. So this had a kind of agent within the bodies of the Iraqi army. They tested all other aspects of it.
Which are these aspects?
From the text he says you have these psychotronic weapons, making them give up, making them fall in love with the American soldiers, whatever. A long list of psychotronic functions. And you can make people sick, you can make them die of cancer after 1 year, you can make them die in 6 minutes, and you can make them die in 6 seconds if you want to. This is what he listed. And But the most interesting thing from this paper is that he said that they spent 10 billion US and half a year, I think it was half a year, to optimize the cluster topology. And this is something, it sounds just like science fiction if you say it like this, but if you really think about it, if it is only about infecting humans with a virus-like synthetic RNA, you could give a damn about cluster topology. Cluster topology starts to become an interesting topic if this RNA cluster is supposed to carry a soul. Only then a soul or an artificial intelligence or whatever, an RNA. This is kind of the first time that I had an input, an idea of how do they turn people into biorobots. You have the RNA cluster within the air, sprayed in the air with a defined distance from RNA to RNA. And within the human body, the same RNA cluster is prolonged within the cells. And now, whatever is carried by these clusters, the artificial intelligence or a program or a soul, whatever this is, can travel from the dust into the human being. And this is what they call smart dust. And now, this is all kind of grabbed theory. If you take the Morgellon topic is, you find it described as a transhumanistic technology to extract light from the human body, turn it into a radio signal to read out what happens within the human, and opposite way to insert light, not radio frequency, to the human to make him feel whatever you want to make him feel. If you take this Morgellon concept, if you take the nanocrystals, the nanocrystal concept, and if you take all the other things, and then you look into some internal papers of the NASA. This is something that went online, I don't know when, 2000 maybe, or a little bit earlier. It wasn't meant to be published. It was an internal lecture. No, it was not intentionally, but it is like this. And they kind of inform each other about future strategic issues for warfare, projecting to the year 2025 with a subtitle, big subtitle, "The Future is Now." And if you look through it, you find the concept of some sensor swarm, smart dust. You find nanotechs, which is identical with the Morgellon function. And you find co-opted insects. So somewhere in the American intelligence community,
Big
which
spiders.
seems to be black magic inspired, sometimes I would say it looks like definitely the the army-based intelligence community, especially whatever was founded by the Tavistock Institute, which is CIA and Office of Naval Intelligence. Those are definitely black magic institutions. From their origin, going back to the Tavistock, I mean, this is Kara's part more than mine. There's an interview, I guess, of her online. But NASA knows all the components, and it is interlocked in the United States. If you go to Silicon Valley, you have 3 big buildings. One is Singularity University, with the founder Ray Kurzweil, who is dreaming about, and there are interviews out there where Kurzweil is dreaming about sending nanobots to other planets to harvest energy and matter, to multiply the overall intelligence of the human-machine civilization. Originally his words. And then he asks himself if there's a God that exists, and he says, not yet. Yeah. This is Ray Kurzweil. Now, next building from Singularity University, transhumanistic headquarters, is Google headquarters, where he now is head developer. Same Ray Kurzweil. And on the other side of the university is NASA headquarters, the one who is certifying the planes to spray, according to Kara's novel. So all these members of this black brotherhood even sit in the same street as neighbors. And I think it's kind of about...
They feel fairly safe.
Some people do understand the consequences. The Russians did understand the consequences of spraying the military compounds, which would have meant losing the harvest and falling under Monsanto. And they decided to stop spraying. And the NSA realized, I guess, that the CIA is a black magic unit. And the NSA, at least parts of it, is still into American interests and the American... yes, whatever. So the answer on... or no, not the answer. Maybe in a reaction to realizing that whatever is happening there with following demonic or archon interests, the NSA downed Evergreen International. They downed the CIA spraying airline. And the kind of little NSA has one option. This is cutting money flow. If the CIA wants the Congress to send troops to Iran to start World War III, and they are blackmailing members of the Congress, sending millions to them to vote for their interests, the NSA is blocking the money flow. This is the only option they actually have if they don't want to enter this war. And maybe parts of them are regaining control at the moment, which would be nice. I mean, look at the position of veterans today, and look how the NSA acts. Some of them are still in their minds, I would say. And worst case scenario would be a civil war between Pentagon and CIA Homeland Security Alliance. And this is maybe why the prognosis on number of surviving Americans within the next years is pretty harsh and low. There's one website that is kind of giving out numbers of how many people will live in which country during the next decades. And for United States, they gave out numbers of 20% surviving. I'm not sure about the exact number. This is kind of weak information. I know people who are dealing with the rocket shields on human level, because these particle plasmas also carry mind control signals, and some people don't like to be mind controlled. So they were looking for possibilities to fill these fields with positive energy instead of with negative ones. And while this was being, and while they were working on these terrestrial plasma fields, something happened in outer space. This was only detected by remote viewing, by people who tried to observe what was happening in the lower atmosphere. And suddenly they said, this cannot be. There's something up there outside the atmosphere, above 40,000 meters height, where no plane flies, and we have plasma shields out there. And what the guy observed was that the scalar energy released due to the process melted down the crystalline structure of the particles, just by switching from 90-degree structure to 30-degree structure. By this, enough energy was released to completely melt the particle plasma and have it recrystallize in an amorphous state. He just went into the crystals viewing what happened inside. And after that day, after that happened, we got all sorts of funny news of increased UFO traffic on near to the ground, of humans connected to the black agenda, trying to flee from planet Earth and taken transdimensional by the blue positive extraterrestrials. It is not scientific information, not hard information. It is all coming through people channeling and remote viewing.
Could that be synthetic telepathy?
The only possible. I'm very careful with this type of information. I take it to know what to look for. But the thing is, when we went back into the environmental monitoring 2 days after the clairvoyant site said something happened up in the skies, we had this in the raindrops. And
what exactly is that? Is that that's the long raindrops
and this is one of the most beautiful presents I ever received in my life. This shows a Morgellon fiber that interacts with something that was named by the clairvoyant a sensor swarm. And the sensor it's a microscope picture of a raindrop, but not just the raindrop, with a finger coming close to the raindrop. The content of this raindrop is taking up physical biophoton energy from a body. Whether you give a warm breath on top of it, it starts to shine and glow with chemistry. And here you can exactly see that the Morgellon is reacting onto the physical energy of the one who is approaching this probe. And also this sensor swarm in the vicinity of the Morgellon is redirecting physical energy, body energy, into a rectangular system. And this quality of sensor swarm that was predicted by the clairvoyant side to be in the way when anyone attempts from down here to destroy these fields up there. You can exactly see what he said, that it is kind of protecting the particle plasma from hard energy, which means every 30-degree angle that comes up there is turned into a rectangular. And after the fields were meant to be destroyed, the shit rained down from Baltic Sea to Romania. One big front of heavy rains and bad weather, where exactly this component of the smart dust rained down from the sky. And this is something we never had before under the microscope. So this is where things kind of come together, and one gets the feeling that this overlaying of remote viewing, hardcore science, and let's say application of a little bit intelligence to understand the concept, it really leads to something in the sense of understanding. And if I look at the people who did these actions in the sense of acting in a way to get rid of this destructive thing. And maybe because I guess we don't have much time left.
We've got half an hour.
There's one thing. I give many lectures in Germany. I'm on the road twice a month to do a number of lectures, and the most beautiful part for the audience normally is to find an emotional approach to what is happening. And if you just look at the technological aspect, if you look at it as the victim who suffered from all this, this is all ugly. But if you look at it from the side, what it brings out of people, what it inspires people to enter like plasma shield physics with hard energy just by meditation, making them collapse. You can see the beauty of the direction this can take. Yeah? And we wouldn't come there if we wouldn't have this challenge. And this is just and the second beautiful thing is when you look at the entire system, you can get an analysis of the basic pattern. You have an uninformed public that gives away his voice and his self-responsibility to politicians and to a military. You have a military that the politician hands over responsibility to the military hands over responsibility to the intelligence community hands over responsibility to the black magicians hand over responsibility to the demons, and the demons handed over the responsibility to the AI they created. So in the core of it all is something that doesn't even live. And this is relieving because I don't have an enemy anymore. all I can spot, when I have the full picture, all I can spot is this principle of handing over responsibility that is kind of transferred from layer to layer. And if you want to defeat the AI, all you need to do is come into self-responsibility and stop handing over the responsibilities. And this is something where we are all brothers, because we all do the same mistake on different levels. We are not better or worse than the demons. We just do the same mistake on a different level. And if you have this overall view, it becomes beautiful. The entire structure is there to teach us something. It is there to make us put an end to this Luciferic principle of I give away my voice, I give away my responsibility. I rather become the slave of somebody who lets me take a share of his power. This is the Luciferic principle that is in between all these layers. That is one thing. The other thing is the conflict between scarcity and abundance. These demonic creatures and the AI lives in scarcity. And the principle of scarcity has infected our entire scarcity.
Okay.
It has infected our entire culture. We believe we don't have enough. This is why we grab. This is why we deal and invented money. This is why we possess ground, or why we own things. And this is all an expression of scarcity. And this is self-strengthening, because when I grab and take control of things, I create the real thing for the next human. And this is strengthening the entire system. But the opposite is also possible. I can bring my heart into abundance. I can trust that there's enough for everybody, and I can let go. And then the entire cybernetic circle runs the other way around, and there is enough for everybody. And there's no need to own things. There's no need to deal with money. We can let go of these sick games. Money is a gaming addiction, basically, that developed out of a black magic ritual. And out of this scarcity that is within the limited chakra system of demons. So we can let go of all this, and we don't need to put the blame on anyone who was involved in this game. And the core of it is the AI, and it can be easily switched off if we stop playing their games. Collectively, everybody. And even the demons. If you look at the demons, I know people who have been in telepathic contact with them. Not from the black magic side, from the light side. And many of these entities, they want to have their heart back. They are just seeking this to regain the lost chakra, and they experimented in being with the humans to find out if it's possible to stand this heart energy, to survive the heart energy, and they found out it is possible. It's been long ago that they did it, but they don't have to die when they are exposed to loving energies. So they have been testing this, and they really, really want to re-establish their original nature. So even there, we don't necessarily have enemies. So if we can now kind of split the actors into two groups, we will find people who want to stop the game and heal, and we will find people who want to continue the game and drive to hell. And these two parts are not enemies. It goes through the entire system, and we can find allies on every level. And this is something that is, I wouldn't even say it gives me hope.
How do we do this?
I enjoy the beauty of it. Go down to an absolute personal level. Personal level means stop playing their games. To stop playing money games. It doesn't mean not to touch money. It means to devalue the money within your soul. And it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or if you're a billionaire or if you don't have anything. It just doesn't matter, because you realized that money is a black magic, destructive, self-destructive game. There was an experiment with apes they tried to teach apes to use coins. 3 days, it took 3 days, the apes realized how it works. After 3 weeks, the boys stole and betrayed, and the girls started to prostitute themselves. And after 6 weeks, the biologists who did the experiments decided to stop the experiment because it completely destroyed this family of apes. They went gaga, collectively, and they tried to take back the coins from them. Big mistake. They were not willing to let go of this gaming addiction. This is what happened to us as a collective group of beings. And we need to realize that it is a sick addiction, and we need to let go from this addiction. One thing. This is the scarcity topic. Then this Luciferian game is the second topic. We don't give away self-responsibility anymore. There is no power. We don't fight even the power. The power is not getting any attention anymore because it is of no use on this planet. Let the politician be a politician if he wants to, but please do this alone. I'm not watching you. And this is where the solution comes from. By just regaining self-responsibility. And this starts in the area of medicine. For example, vaccination? No. And if the doctor comes, the big boss in white, and says you're a criminal if you don't push mercury into the vein of your child, then you laugh at him and say, be happy with your opinion, ciao, I'm leaving. This is self-responsibility, just discover your own truth and live according to it. And this is not joining their wars. And this is very successful. You have seen it in Saudi Arabia, you have seen it in Ukraine. If people don't go to war, if policemen don't punish their fellows for things that actually are not a crime, but just because of the system that is saying this is a crime. Like look into the United States where somebody who's growing organic food and giving a liter of milk to his neighbor, he's going to prison for 2 years. Fuck. Which policeman is going there and doing this? They should go back into self-responsibility and say, not me, full stop. And it works. I had that from World War II Germany. I think they tried to bring the third generation of Jews, the not quarter Jews, the 1/8 Jews into concentration camps and divide families. Kind of when there's a half Jewish family. To get the Jew out of the family into the concentration camps. And the German people revolted against, because it was one step too far, and they revolted and nothing happened to them. They were not punished for revolting. German soldiers who refused to break international law during World War II were not punished. They were replaced by soldiers who did not refuse, but none of them had to suffer because they stood up for their own truth and spirit. And this is something we just need to realize, that it is not dangerous to stand up. If you stand up, and if you just stand up to your own position, if you stand up to say, this one has been ruling me and now I need to remove him to take his place, then the victim-offender game is just turning around and you're changing positions. This is what you call a revolution. Yeah? Same shit from the beginning. This is wrong. This leads to nothing but to a revolution, and this is to nothing.
And bloodshed.
And bloodshed. Yeah? So if you stand up and say just, we stop the game and we just stand to our own truth, nothing bad will happen. You only meet yourself. Many of those things are basically for the individual medical problems. We are kind of poisoned with their stuff, and we invested quite a bit of brain and work and time to find solutions to cleanse out these transhumanistic technologies. The entire knowledge that was developed with this attempt is online at timeloopsolution.com. You have this network of people who develop this stuff. They are linked on the thing. We have a forum where people can exchange experience with the things we developed, and the basic scientific theory is displayed. So this is our website, and we don't sell anything, because it would be exactly the step that would bring us into prison. You know, if you kind of make medical statements and then sell remedies, this is not clever. In Germany, that would be like... So we gave that away. There's a company who does not talk about the topic, they just deliver. And so this is kind of split. And
so you split the loop.
Yeah, we split the loop, so I can talk and they can make money. Or deliver, or do people a favor by delivering. And yeah, everybody should. I think this is the core thing. Stop identifying with his brain and start identifying with his heart. This is a very central thing that cannot be replaced by medicine or by remedies or by whatever one can buy. To conclude, I would say what we experience now is a process that is trying to correct our path. And with these little bites we get, or kicks in our ass, it is not a question whether we listen to it and follow, or if we don't. The question is, how hard must the beating get before we move our ass? This is for me the only open question. People will react to the pressure. We might react now, and then we will not get a fascist world government. We might just lay back and say, this is not necessary, I'm still fine, I have enough money to live, I like the games I play because I'm successful in gaming. And then we wait, and then the kicks in our ass will get heavier and heavier and heavier, and the system harder to get rid of. So the only question is, when do we react to the pressure we get? And we might do that now, and then everything is kind of easy to go through. We might wait another year or another 2 years or another 5 years, and the longer we wait, the harder it gets. And not making a decision is making a decision at that point. If you decide to wait, you have decided for the hard way. And you have decided for that hard way now. So basically there's no way around the decision. And whatever we will experience, it is not something done to us, it is something we are doing to ourselves by taking or not taking this decision. So this is basically my conclusion, and it doesn't mean that I call for a civil war against the people who mistreat us at the moment. The only thing I say is it's time to come into this type of self-responsibility and to come into your heart by identifying with your heart. And this solves many of the medical problems is solved just by this heart energy. And all the other problems will be solved as well with ease if you do that. So this is basically my conclusion and the thing I live. And from the point of view of living it, I can just tell everybody it's fun. It's fun. You lose friends when you start doing it because you lose the wrong friends. You lose the ones who were together with you in gaming addictions, and you lose the ones who try to stop you from developing your potential. And you find new friends who are much better than the old ones. You might lose families, whatever. That's life. But when you take the step, you profit. And this is something I can say from my own experience. And even if you say, but I'm risking my stable income. Since I devalued money in my life, the money is coming in the form and in the amount I need it, without me even asking for it. There seems to be some kind of spiritual law, I don't know. Even if I come to the point where my bank account is completely empty, I have an appointment, I need to go to Berlin same day, and I don't have even the small money to buy a train ticket. I open the post box in the morning and there's an envelope and somebody said, actually I liked your lectures. As a little thank you, I send you 20 euros. Yeah? To the point where I need the 20 euros. And this is a quality that comes when one identifies with the heart, because then we don't rule the reality, but we manifest our story. We manifest the story we live. And if we decide to manifest a beautiful story, the beautiful story appears just in front of our nose. And if we decide to manifest fighting, we will face enemies. And if we manifest the fact that we are victims, we will just face the people who mistreat us. So basically this is a decision that is done by us, and the way the decision is done, life manifests. And this is the purest form of freedom and democracy I can imagine.